Hello and welcome back to Intuition Fridays. You're here with ASHALA Yardley live with my ally, new friend, and co-host, Penny Kelly, the infamous Penny Kelly. Welcome, Penny.
Hello, everyone. Hello, ASHALA. And it's good to be here. Uh, it's really good to be here for more reasons than you can imagine. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. We're over a month now. I think we're at 5 or 6 weeks since we've done an Intuition Friday. We had you take July off. So here we are,
Yeah.
1st of August, whole new start. And
Yep.
Penny and I are going to be today covering some really important stuff. I mean, we always do,
Yeah.
but we want to talk to you about timelines. We want to talk to you about how rapid things can shift and the necessity to be both deeply intuitive and also to be able to pivot. I want to add to what we were saying earlier, Penny, and say be able to pivot and have different plans of action, plan A, B, C kind of thing, and not just put everything into
Right.
one plan or one vision or one perspective, because we're going to be seeing a lot of changes coming.
Right. Let me add, we are seeing a lot of
We
changes.
are, we are, and
Wow.
that's going to continue. We're both intuiting and have been told for a while that that's going to go on for some time here.
Yeah.
So before we get started, as always, folks, I'm going to bring your attention to some of our amazing material here. So please, if you haven't already done so, share on YouTube. We're growing gradually. I think that there's just so many people out there in your circles of friends that might be ready for some of the messages here. So yeah, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and for sure share this information. Of course, you can also follow us for even more of the sort of deeper content or the underground content. You can follow us over here on Rumble and also on X channel. So we have just so many incredible shows. Daily astro shows, our Intuition Fridays, Beyond the News, Beyond Crystals, Expanding Consciousness. I mean, you just get a sense here of what's available. I do a psychic tarot weekly show as well on Saturday, so that'll be tomorrow. So yeah, just some things to be aware of going forward here. And let's talk about Penny now for a moment. This is where you can find Penny Kelly if you haven't already discovered her incredible website, all her classes, her store with so much of her written material, which I did download your ebook, Penny, that one on Trump and the Sting, and I was just riveted by it. I absolutely loved it. Read the whole thing. And want to, when I have the time, go in and look at a lot of your other material as well. So thank you for all of your workshops, your intuitive development courses, and so on.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I'm really glad you read that. And I hope you weren't too unsettled by that.
You know
So,
what? I mean, I think but I'll just reiterate that I've been awake for over 30 years. So
yeah.
similar to you, I have done a lot of research and connected a lot of the dots. This is actually maybe a good starting point for us, is this:
Yeah.
when you have done a lot of research, when you see this from a lot of angles over years, and the gradual evolution and progression of these narratives, and things you thought for sure were going to happen that didn't, and other things that you didn't think that were going to happen and did. But overall, the ability to see that big picture, and that comes from not just grabbing every bit of information that's skimming by and going, Oh, that's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. This is the latest news. This has to be right because it's just come down the pipe. So much of that latest news, I watch it and I'm like, yeah, that was in books I read in the 80s.
I know.
Right?
There was a point where I had to quit reading because it was like, I already read all this stuff 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And nothing is new, but it's the next generation that's discovering that same information. They're putting it out there in their words. It's like, oh, that's what's happening. So that was kind of comforting.
Yes.
It's like, okay, they're getting it. Some young ones are getting on board because it is important to see the big picture and how all the pieces fit.
Yeah.
And we're still reading stuff that was written 100 years ago and saying, oh, that's what they meant by that. Or, oh, I see the world differently now, given what I see looking, what do you call that, hindsight?
Yes.
In the rear view mirror, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. And I think if we want to stay on the surface, then we are going to grab all of that, what's just come down the pike. But we can't stay on the surface given the time that we're in. We really have to go a lot deeper. And you can't just stay on the surface and get any kind of comfort or feeling of security or any kind of like direction. You can't develop your inner map. And so the inner map actually has to start with your own ethics. What do you want to live by? Your own code of behavior that you think is good and right and beautiful and true. But
yeah,
those people that are on the surface they're going to struggle badly. And I want to see that struggling stop. So,
I do too. And, often I hear people are like, yeah, but I don't know where to begin. And I had a great spiritual mentor for years, and he shared that you start wherever you want. You start wherever you're drawn. You start, and it's sort of like everything, the grains of sand on the beach, right? Everything leads back to the same, like once we understand one thing, it expands and cross references into the next awareness and the next. It's sort of like, yeah,
you begin to integrate. That's what happens. You start integrating. Oh, that fits this. Oh, there's a piece. And when I started, I have this mental filing cabinet, and it was a 4-drawer filing cabinet in my mind. And the thing was filled with pieces that didn't fit anywhere. Now there's a couple pieces in there. And I think, okay, what about that? Well, we don't know yet. And I think that's important to be able to say, we don't know. And we're still watching, we're still learning. And I learned that from Dr. Levengood. He said, no, you don't jump to conclusions. You don't try to make your theory fit what you see out there. You just wait and you keep gathering information, and then the answer falls right in your lap. And it does. And it took a while for me to learn that.
Me too, but being a Gemini had a bit of an advantage because we love to just gather seemingly unrelated data and just file it and file it and file it. We're like data synthesizers. But the cool thing is that Geminis also solve the riddle very quickly because they've got all this data and they just go, yeah, that'll be useful somewhere. I don't know what that means, but I'm putting it there. Nothing is like off limits. But nothing is absolutely 100% decided because we are in evolving timelines.
That's right. That's right. And Levengood used to say, this is what we think now. And he said that repeatedly. You put all the data together, you gather all the data. I do too. And intuition every so often will take some of those pieces and make them all fit. And you go, oh my God. And you have another piece. And so that you hang on to that, you test that in different ways against the reality. And when something else comes along that disturbs that, you go, back to the drawing board. And so what we think now keeps evolving. And I think people are finally starting to see the bigger picture. But we're coming to a point now where the timeline splits, and I say that plural, those are becoming really, really clear, really obvious. So you need to be clear about who you are and what you want, how you want to live, and that will just carry you onto a timeline that matches you, that fits how you are inside. And usually it's a little better than you think you are. People are sometimes really hard on themselves. So I have to remind people, hey, be gentle. That's your heart and soul that you're working with there. And they will sometimes, I think we have a legacy of not only church stuff, but school stuff that says, you either pass or you're a total failure. There's no in between. And the church is the same thing. It's either heaven or hell. Where's the in between?
Mhm.
Where's all the other alternatives? There's millions of them. So we're at a point where we can't stay on the surface anymore. You have to go deep. And what does that require? It requires collecting some of those pieces, but it also requires looking at what do I want? And then asking, why do I want that? Why is that important? How am I going to get that? How am I going to avoid that if it's something you don't want? And are the things that you want, are they really valuable, or do they just give you status? You know, People look at you and go, oh, wow, he's this or she's that, or successful. But is the definition of success that we have really, is it relevant to the evolution of the entire self? And so you have to really stop and do some deep work there and to see where's that going? Where am I going?
What have been some of the things, Penny, that have helped you when you get to those nodes of like, am I on the right path? How do I know
Oh, yeah.
it's good for me?
Well, the first thing is like, okay, well, I'm not sure. So you have to admit you're not sure. What does that do? It opens you up. When you're not sure, you go looking for sureness, for certainty, and it's not always right there. And so that's something that we really need to acknowledge that we can live and do quite well and be very happy and celebrate our birthday and pay our bills and all that without being sure that we're going to be able to do that tomorrow or the
Mhm.
next month or the next year. And we have some big changes coming at us, and we're choosing those changes. A lot of
Mhm.
people are excitedly moving forward. I don't know if they know what they're moving toward, but that's beside the point. They're moving forward. So I think, one of the questions I had, and maybe you can draw, do your draw your tarot cards for this, is where are we going as a collective in just the next month? You know,
Mhm.
what what is the collective ethos and pathos of the next month?
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, and I just, as you were saying that about, the that moment where you say, "I'm not sure," and
Yeah,
instead of grabbing for sureness, which is our desire for, it's the ego wanting security, right? I want something
yeah,
where I
we
can
do.
feel safe, but we're clearly going into what I call like an initiatory cycle where there is not that sense of safety is a deeper place. And we're talking about going deeper. It comes from a deeper place. It isn't about I'm sure of anything really, but it's about I know myself. I have a deep connection to source
Right.
and I am feeling more strong and more grounded every day. So as you were saying that about the, that ability to take the time,
Oh,
I was thinking of the Eight of Cups and how
yep.
it is such a beautiful card for these times of, because one way I noticed that I'm not on track. I mean, now my body just, I've got such a a kind of fierce team inside of me that I don't get away with anything. It's sort of like, oh, you stepped off the line 2 centimeters, 2 millimeters, whatever. And it's like, where? No, you're going that way.
Yep.
But earlier on, when I was still weaving and, bobbing and weaving, this was a really important lesson for me, was that exactly what you're saying. The Eight of Cups is where you kind of were on this trajectory of fulfillment. Everything, you put all the ducks in the row. I like to say this is like the ducks in the row up there. And then you realized, I still don't feel good, or something's off. Like, I thought I had it all covered and I don't. And so that final cup that's missing, it's not just like, oh shoot, I missed one thing. It's actually the key that opens the fulfillment door. It's like, it's the holy grail, it is the one that you're never really going to evolve without it. Your timelines aren't you're going to keep, because the eights are about repeat the pattern. It's sort of like a repeating manifestation cycle. So if we don't want to keep repeating this pattern, we're going to need to sit with the discomfort of the unknown. And as Penny's saying, go deeper. Go deeper.
Yeah. And that card, it's got a dark sky. That says that you can't see when it's night. You can't see very far. You can't see very much. And so there's not enough light to see. And he turns around. It's like, I've got all these cups. I've been working to fill these cups maybe for 50, 60, 70 years. Something's not enough. And you go off looking to see, okay, what's the missing piece? What's the missing cup? So that card, that's interesting, because when I was doing my tarot reading for the month of August, I accidentally pulled 2 cards, and that was one of them. But the top one was one I was after. And I thought, oh, I need to put this one aside. So, but I noted what it was. And when you pull it, I was like, oh, there it is again.
Yeah.
And my question was, what is the future?
I'll pull 2 as well, and we'll see which 2 come up, because you asked about this month. And we got this.
What's
kind
the
of
ethos
going. What's that?
Yeah. What's the ethos of this month?
What's the ethos of this month?
Yeah.
I think it's this one. Okay, so I'm going to put that up to a larger screen. We can have a peek at it there. So we've got this really great. Oh, great. Okay, so we've got this beautiful card of higher vision, this perspective. I love that he's elevated. He can see the lay of the land. So he's got big vision, high vision. He's actually holding the globe in his hands. So he's considering the whole. He's considering not just what's good for him, but for all, the greater good of the whole world. And he's not ready to take the first step yet. He's, again, taking that time. So I wonder if we're looking at this month, the ethos being around the time to do that 8 of Cups inward journey, sit with the unknown, keep your eye on the bigger picture, look for the patterns, the larger patterns emerging. And then the other card is the Empress. I mean, this is a theme that's been coming up, Penny, in my readings in the last 2 weeks, is a lot of energy around people healing their wounds with the power dominant patriarchy. Not the healthy masculine, but the dominant unhealthy masculine. And then a lot of this, I want to say, divine feminine energy, which is about holistic win-win solutions. It's very nature-based. It's very inclusive. And so, and it's very aligned with natural law and our beautiful planet.
Yeah. The Empress, she's often considered to be maybe pregnant as well. And, in that 2 of Wands, if you look at the background, you'll see that there's a pathway that splits. And that is symbolic of having to choose.
Having to choose. Pathway, folks, right there. There it is.
Right. And that, it's like, okay, that's where we're at, having to choose. And ethos is about what are your beliefs, what are your principles, what are your ethics, your values, all that kind of thing. And then pathos is more of your feeling. Sometimes it's associated with kind of feeling sorry for somebody, usually yourself, but that's not necessarily the case. What the pathos should be is that empress with all of the power in the world. Women in the tarot are considered much more powerful than the kings, and so that is not something that is really understood. But in that whole thing, but look at the big heart that she's got resting on that very passionate red cape. That says, look, it's about the ability to generate what you want and what you need, to give birth to what you want, what you need, and what you see is good. So that's not a bad place for us to be. And all that grain down in the front of her card, that says it's a time of fullness. We'll be well fed. Don't worry too much about that. So it's a beautiful card. It's really quite powerful.
I love that, Penny. Thank you. Because, if we look at sort of like the earth-based calendar of the year, the cycles of nature and the seasons,
Yep.
we are in the northern hemisphere coming into the autumn, like coming into the end of summer, which is often the grain harvest, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
Right.
and
And
it can be symbolic as well as literal. It can be that we're harvesting from
yeah,
all that we have done, all the good things that we're involved in, and do we keep the stuff that is not healthy? No.
the chaff, however you say that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
chaff, separating the wheat from the chaff. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing that I sense, in spite of, there's a lot of violence being highlighted by the mainstream media, a lot of it. But what I experience in interaction with people is this amazing, like, I'm so glad you're here kind of attitude. Let's cooperate. There's a love that is almost palpable in some ways. And even in the like, okay, we got to get her done kind of attitude, there's still this attitude of making it work and work well, and doing so in such a way that everybody is satisfied. And I love that. I love that. I see Deb says, I feel like I'm waiting for a shoe to drop. Yeah, I think that's, let me say something about that. That is something that is, that's your body's knowing, talking. Everybody for like 2 months now has said that same thing. I feel like something big is coming. I even see that in headlines on YouTube and Rumble. What is the big thing? We don't know, but the body is telling us, okay, get ready for something. So that means needing to really look at, are you ready physically? Are you ready mentally? Are you ready emotionally? Are you ready spiritually? What is spirituality? It's feeling and meaning. Those two things. You have a feeling, it's an emotional feeling, and you assign a meaning, your meaning, not the socially accepted meaning. When spiritual development is when you start to assign your own meanings to what you are seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, etc. And so that's preparation. And some of it might require extra food or, whatever, extra something or other. And then emotional is you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you might lose. And that lesson was a big lesson for me this month when my brother was killed in the middle of July. And that was just like, oh my God. And, that was kind of heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, not kind of, but it was kind of this huge reminder that wow, I don't think he even knew what hit him. And that it could be over that fast. You're done.
This is someone is just commenting here. The unraveled RN tree fell on my car last night in the storm.
Oh
Totaled.
my, oh
Right?
God.
So these kinds of things, Penny and I were just discussing this before we came on, and I was very saddened to hear
Yeah.
all of your news, Penny, that you've gone through a cycle of great loss with a lot of people all together, like a lot of in a
Within
row,
1 week,
within a week.
4 people.
And then I was reflecting that in the natural world, with the places that I hike and walk regularly, there's been several incidents with animals in the last 10 days to 2 weeks. So if something is kind of activated, very fired up, and we're going through this great time of, there will be different
Yes.
versions of catastrophe coming towards us, right? Like whether it's a larger global catastrophes or regional or political, economic, personal, a tree falling on, like, acts of God, like it just has that feeling in the air. And I want to ask the question to you, Penny, like, what is good about times like this? Because it feels quite daunting, doesn't it? I mean, it's pretty daunting.
It is. It's very, very daunting for a lot of people. The good thing, if you want to make something good, you have to make it good out of a time like this, because otherwise it doesn't look very good. But you have to look ahead to say, how did I change? What happens is that people get really comfortable in their rut. When they get really comfortable is when they are most in danger. And one thing can change, and voila, it ruins everything. So let me just give an example that a lot of people have talked about over the last year or two. We've gotten really, really comfortable. Just go to work, make your income, pay your payments, your bills, put a little money in the bank, put some money in your 401k, and keep moving toward retirement. And what if that 401k is not there? What if there's a financial crash? What if, that we could what if from now till the moon turns to green cheese? But the fact of the matter is, if that big change that everybody's feeling is coming at us and we don't know what that is, you have to be on alert. Well, that is a good thing, because it teaches you to put your antenna up and pay attention to what's happening around you. And so if let's say you lose your 401k, well, you still have your life. You still have your relationships. If your house was paid off, you still have your house, et cetera, et cetera. If there's a crash in the financial system, it may be a big crash. It may affect everything. It may affect just this one little sliver of your pension. When that comes, if that comes, you have to be ready to take a stand and say, look, don't come after me for this or that money or whatever, or pay my property taxes when you took all my money. You already got your tax money. You will have to take a stand. And so that is a strengthening and an expansion of one's power. And that's a good thing. In the long run, what comes out of times like this are very, very wise and aware people. And you need that to evolve. And that's the whole point of existence, is to evolve to the God state, to move into life among the immortals. And that just sounds like pie in the sky to those of us who are down here slogging away. But that is the truth. That is the fact of the whole system of life. Life is a system, and it recycles us and our energy, and we recycle upwards. If you want to get off the recycling, which is known as rebirth, then you have to move into the God state, and that requires wisdom, evolution of consciousness, expansion, and getting out of a rut. So, the big focus may be, how do I get my lights turned back on, or where do I get enough to eat? But that keeps you in a place that keeps you on that in the recycling mechanism. So, and why are you being recycled? Because you're being refined, and that refining eventually hits home. And then here and there, people say, I think I'm going to try meditating, or I think I'm going to change my diet, or I think I'm going to start exercising, or I think I'm going to, take a class in something that changes your whole perspective. Whatever. They start to look beyond the little circle of problems that they have created. And that's the good that comes out of it, because it's a lot of crap. It's a lot of ugliness. It's a lot of hurt. You have to transmute all of that. And that's a big lesson, and that takes big power.
It surely does. It absolutely does. And,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Penny. I say it often, but when you're right in the middle of one of those crises, it's sure hard to swallow that bitter pill of, this is going to be good for me,
Yeah.
or like, but it is reminding us, I think we've gotten quite, I want to say, kind of, well, we've certainly been tricked and brought into a false reality
Yeah.
where the illusion that everything's safe, and if we just pay our bills and pay our taxes and go to work and do what we're told, everything will be looked after. But nature and reality is so much more wild and free than that. And
Yeah.
so it's, in a way, you could say our soul's evolution is trying to get us back into our wildness, where,
That's right.
that's things about wild energy, like a wild being recognizes danger before it hits. It's like something's coming, right? Like the animals in the forest. Oh, we got to get out of here. Something's coming, a storm's coming. Like why do they know that's coming? And
Right.
even how to instinctually prepare or pivot or
Yep.
change their routines. We're so dumbed down out of that instinctual and intuitive wildness to be able to recognize what's actually going on.
Right.
And then we're hoping that the things that we put all this energy into for security are going to ride us through that. So,
Yeah.
Obviously we can't change everything overnight, but what I've noticed, just like you, Penny, is when those things really, a lot of the chaos and the big impacts are happening, if I can stay calm
Right.
and stay open-hearted, right? Not go into fear and panic, not go into
Yep.
reaction. Usually a new version of a timeline, which is what we're going to talk about here, it
Yeah.
starts to open.
Yeah. Right. It does. And I think you just reminded me of something that I've heard many, many people say, and it goes something like this. And this is kind of their explanation for why they're here. They'll say, well, we came here for this time, over and over. We came here for this. And so what did they come here for, really? They came here to get that kick in the butt that says, come on, you have to expand. You have to evolve. It's time to take a step. It's time to take a 7-league step, because we are up against some 7-league, crappy people that think they're going to run things. And so all of that is part of, I think, some sort, I don't know, I guess I'll say it adds a little bit of, oh, that's what we're doing here. A little bit of explanation as to why, why did I choose this time to be born? And the other thing that keeps coming back to me, you used a word just a few minutes ago, and the word was initiation. And it immediately triggered this awareness of, what did we have before we had public schools and governesses? We had initiation processes. We had, what do they call that among the Indians? They would put somebody out they would put a kid.
Vision quest.
Vision Quest or that sort of thing, those were the initiatory processes that when you were out there and there was no mama and no daddy that was there to collect water or, deal with the animals who came by or feed you or keep you safe from the storms or whatever, you had to figure it out for yourself. And you would come back from that initiation with having gone to the edge, typically gone to the edge of your own death, and had some sort of, until you figure out how to feed yourself or where to get some water, you'll go right to the edge. You'll have a vision, and it'll be a vision of where to get food, maybe, or where to get water. But it can also be a much bigger vision as well. And what you learn is, it comes from inside. The answers come from inside. The direction comes from inside. The security comes from inside. And we don't have that initiatory process anymore. We have public school. And public schools have just, that's my personal opinion. They have shattered the consciousness and the maturity, and therefore the power of almost every individual in the Western system of governance and education. And we're suffering now because of that. We don't have that ability to reach inside, to dredge up a vision that says, where can I get something to eat? That kind of thing. So I think when you start, so let me tie this to the timeline now. When you start taking back your ability to decide for yourself, to make choices, to say, I'm going to wait for the answer to come from inside, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. What you're really doing is refusing to move forward with the timeline you are on, and you're actually starting a new one for yourself. And then when you find other like-minded people, you can begin to move with them, and that creates a whole different outcome. So we have these timelines. The timeline choice usually begins with some sort of personal crisis in which you refuse to follow the crowd. And that's where we are coming into. We've been into it since COVID started. Can we say that word now? Since 2020. And people who said, no, I'm not going that way, were really taken to task, really criticized, really accused of killing others and all the stupid accusatory lies. And now we're looking back at the people who chose to follow the crowd and going, I'm so sorry. And yet they're on a different timeline now.
Yes.
They are moving in a different direction, and they have to, because of what's happening with their physical self.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting, Penny, and I'm seeing there's quite a lot of people showing up to give you condolences about your brother.
Thank you guys. Thank you. It was.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for that. And I just want to say, it's interesting, right? Because this energy of people that have chosen a different timeline, and I know some people that did choose to have that substance put in their body. They made a choice under duress or for whatever different variety of reasons. And I don't think all of them are going to end up on that ultimate follow the herd timeline. But there is going to be consequences there always is in every dimension, right? There's going to be consequences for every choice, every decision we make. And it isn't about making the perfect choice, the right decision. It's about, like, we had to follow, in a way, the directive of our timelines. And when I also lost my brother suddenly in 2017, and he had an aneurysm in his sleep, and he was just 50. And it's so fascinating because it's like there was something where it felt as though he took a part of our family's timeline and exited, took it away, took it back home to the ancestors. He redirected something. It felt,
it does.
Yeah, and it feels almost like there's some kind of sacred purpose for a lot of these things. Like, we
Yeah,
just don't know what our loved ones and even ourselves at our time of exit, right? Like, we don't know what we've contracted and what, is it just negative things or things happening, even the people that play the worst roles in humanity's, like,
right.
external reality, so many of them chose that role to go through what it felt like to go all the way into that and be that bad guy, and then like
Right.
learn from that experience, reclaim, find the long challenging path back to the dignity of their soul. Like, we just don't understand the meaning of a lot of this.
No, and we often muck up the whole road along the journey when something, you just sparked an awareness that I think it would be neat to share. We had in our family somebody that just pulled out away from the family. This is among my siblings. And it was, it had a spouse who really didn't like the family. And nobody criticized him or really her for that. They badmouthed us, but we didn't badmouth them. Because we didn't badmouth them, there was no, I'll call it gossip, getting back to them. It didn't escalate. It didn't become a war of words. It didn't become anything that was, even more aggravating. And when my brother died, we all came back together. There were no old wordy barriers that were in the way of getting back together and just being there and loving one another in the situation that we had. So I think it's really important. I have a saying that I learned, that came from within. Actually, at the time of my first divorce, I had two marriages, one 7 years and one 26 years. And so that first one, that was a rough marriage, and for all of us, for all myself and my kids. And I would always just say, just love him the way that he is. Stop trying to make him be other than the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened some doors for everybody. And we did that in my greater family, my siblings. Just love those two the way that they are.
Yes.
And there's no resentment hanging over us now. And I think that is not what a lot of people do. They complain, they cry, they piss and moan about the other person. They make all kinds of statements. That becomes like you creating with your own words. And you're separating yourself from them and making it impossible to ever come back together.
Yeah.
So just be careful of that, you guys. Don't say things that you'll regret later.
Even to yourself.
Even to yourself.
Right?
Just
I mean,
love
you
them
can
the way
talk
that they
about,
are.
yeah, I always talk about, nonviolent communication training, which is really for us, not so much for, well, I mean, it has the great
Right.
spin-off of being good for our relationships, but
Yeah.
you can talk about your feelings. You can talk about your needs. You can say,
I know.
it really breaks my heart. It's heart-wrenching. It
Right.
hurts to see this person treating themselves like this. It feels
Yeah.
very hurtful when they speak to me like that or whatever. You can say all your feelings, and you can say, I need to have space from that. I need to have good sovereign boundary away from that. You can
Yep.
talk about your feelings and your needs, but to make them like, the bad guy.
Yep.
And,
It
and
doesn't benefit you in the long run.
it doesn't, or that they're going to have to pay for what they've done, or any sort of sense of,
Right.
that there's going to be some sort of restitution down the road. It's just, we get all tangled up in the laws of karma, then we're just messed up.
Right.
Right?
That's true. And then that prevents us from getting onto the timeline that we want. When you create a whole bunch of crap, you have to rectify that. And that's going to keep you on the timeline that you maybe don't want to be on. So higher consciousness is a purifying process. And one of the things you have to do is let go of biases, let go of old angers, resentments, feelings that, oh, they weren't nice to me. Like, well, so what? You know, you be nice to them and be nice to yourself, and you'll be fine. It's really not going to kill you to have them talk bad about you. Hold your dignity. Keep your dignity.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And in the beginning, you're just keeping your dignity so that you can say they didn't take that from me. But
right.
And you're actually realizing, oh, it's like I say to, about narcissists and scapegoats. I'm like, I call the scapegoat the scapegoat. They got away from the family pattern. They got away. They don't have to live. The narcissist has to live inside their own terrible
right.
system all the time, right? So,
right.
In the long run, when you hold that, like you say, that dignity, it's not just righteousness. Eventually you start to realize, wow, I'm the leader here. I'm the elder. I'm the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really so true. And I think you don't have to be standing out there. You don't have to be a Donald Trump to be a leader. You just have to be wise and handle what comes in front of you and what's yours to deal with in the best way you can. Mm-hmm. So, and that allows us then to go a little deeper into ourselves, go a little bit deeper into the future, and to say, okay, I'm ready as I can be. And that, I think, is where we need to be. If we lose a leader in the next month or two, or a couple of leaders, then what? All the whole story changes. The whole timeline changes. Where are you going if it changes? You know, what then?
What then? What then?
Yeah. If you lose all your money, same thing. What then?
Absolutely. And, I have felt all the way along that someone like Donald Trump plays this incredible role of being just like this, like badger medicine or bulldog medicine, right? It's like, it's like,
yeah,
clear the yard, right? Like, it's like, but that's a very different medicine than what builds, it's kind of like, then meanwhile, there's this garden of Eden, right? There's the like that empress that we saw. And, I think for some of us, the divine feminine wants to step in. It's like, is Donald Trump the divine feminine? I kind of think not. But he's done such a beautiful job of like protecting and clearing a path for the divine feminine, right? So what does that look like for us to start like intentionally walking along that timeline path?
Right. Why don't you ask the cards that? What does it look like for us to walk the path of the divine feminine?
Woo!
See what
okay. Thanks, Penny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. What does that look like? And this isn't just specific to women. This is specific to prioritizing. It's who has power. I've been saying the last couple of weeks, because it's been coming up a lot. Like, well, we have so many of the people that we've given the power to have the greatest influence of decision making on this planet.
That's
and
right.
A lot of the, probably 90% of those at the top of that power scheme are masculine figures that have a power dominant model of authority.
I know.
Centralized power dominant model of authority. So it's just changing models, folks. It's not about like, oh, these people are bad and these ones are good. And it's about we're just ready to change and have a divine feminine model coming forward.
There's a gentling process that needs to happen. That it isn't that difficult. So, I think the feminine. Oh wow. Oh my. Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So go ahead. What do you make of those?
Okay. I love it. We're teaming up here. Okay. Well,
So
I
what
want
does the
I want
divine feminine look like as we move forward?
I want to speak about this because I saw in the comments somebody had been making a lot of comments about double numbers, 44, 55,
Oh,
88. And
yes.
then I wanted to speak about what my perspective of Christ consciousness is. The number of perfection is 77.7. So just pausing for a minute, and I've got a beautiful story someday I'll share about how I came to that number. It was actually my mother when she passed over, and she was a perfectionist, and she used to say you have to get 100% and everything. And I was always like, nope, 70 is good for me. And then somehow I got this clear message from her, actually 77. You're closer to the correct answer. It's 77.7. And so
Very good.
what that is, the double numbers are mastery of whatever the single number is. So
Right.
77 is mastery of the spiritual frequency of natural law,
Yeah.
the harmonic of natural law frequency. Is it 100%? No, because there's always going to need to be a fluctuation. We're always going to need wiggle room to evolve. It's like if evolution doesn't happen in a straight line, it meanders. It's a curvy spiral, right? So
That's right.
that frequency, it's like the light spectrum, 7 rays of the light spectrum, the 7 notes of the scale, the music scale. It's like, so
Mm.
it is the frequency of divine law, natural law.
Oh,
And
nice.
to me, that is Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness isn't perfection, it's natural law, which is that 77.7%.
Yeah. It's love.
It's
It's
love.
love. It's so simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you laid down the cards in my head, I went, okay, past, present, future. And then you laid down the 10 of swords. I'm like, oh, that's the past. Okay.
You gotta
So
walk away from that,
if
right? The old narratives, the old beliefs.
yeah, it's the end of that way of handling I'll say of relating to one another, the end of that domineering thing. What about cooperation? Do we always have to compete? Do we always have to fight and be on top? No, we don't. And so maybe that's the end of that whole paradigm. When women begin to speak and move into, or even men begin to develop the feminine side of themselves so that they're comfortable cooperating or fighting when they have to. So then, the wands, that's where we're at right now. That's, and I like what you said. That's, to me, that's the card of, look, your back is against the wall. You better do something different. You better start working with people, with others, because otherwise you're going over the cliff. And that's, wands are about action, and they're really a very powerful card in terms of, look, if I want the feminine energy coming in, I'm bringing it in, and you just need to adjust down there, etc. And so
Golden line, yeah.
yeah, and then the what's being offered, and the Knight of Cups, that's like, okay, let's offer a little love here. It's a peaceful kind of, let's work together. We're all drinking from the same cup. It's the cup of reality. And actually, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about this week. And I thought, well, maybe we'll have to save that for next week. What
Yeah.
is the nature of reality? Do people really know how reality works? Because if you don't know, how are you going to make it work for you? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting. People are mentioning here cooperation, community,
yeah.
um, and
Oh, I love that.
and it's beautiful that when I say the 77 is perfection, that's what we're aiming for,
Right,
because you actually go through the number of unity, cooperation, and service to humanity, which is the 6 or the 66. You
right.
go through that to get to the 77. So how do we're not going to always be Christ conscious
No,
perfection,
not
but
really.
we get closer to that by moving into service, because the 6 is the number that precedes the 7.
Yep,
So the 6 is the number, it's like the hexagonal shape of the beehive structure, the beehive cells, which
Yep.
is cooperation, the greater good of all,
Yeah.
reciprocity, harmony and balance. That's all the number 6. So if we aim into that energy of the 6, cooperation, the greater good of all, that harmonic energy, we're heading in that right direction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we got into trouble by women not being equal in terms of their voice, their power, their decision-making ability. Women do have a tremendous impact on men. And in our family, we joke that women really run the world, but men do all the work. And so it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, it's not like women don't have any input, because they do. But somehow that doesn't translate into like a global sort of cooperative energy. And like Jerry said, community, common unity. Yeah, where is that? I think we're moving in that direction, like you said.
Yeah,
And
I think we are headed there. And look at this. We should be clear the feminine energy has nothing to do with women. It has to do, well, I wouldn't say nothing to do with the women. I would
well,
say
look, yeah,
women are, because of the way we are hormonally and chemically wired, we
right,
have a natural capacity to hold more of that holistic approach. It's just built
right.
into our biology.
That's
So we
right.
are going to be less, not we as the absolute, but we as a
Yeah,
general are going to be less interested in just the benefit of the singularity, right?
right,
We're less
right,
interested in that straight line energy of, you know,
right.
the shortcut to the solution, or the straight line of getting this particular problem solved. We
Yeah,
think more holistically. That's how we're designed biologically. So
yeah,
I think it is prevalent to some degree more so, or women have the availability to access that in
yeah,
a better way, but we also have huge shadows that mess with that energy. So I agree, it's not just women, it
yeah,
is about right brain energy. And I
right.
totally agree with you,
Yeah,
Melissa.
and when you develop both sides of the brain for men and for women, you get a beautiful kind of balance and working together that we don't see yet. I hope we're moving toward that. I want to be moving toward that, but we're not there yet. So
Absolutely.
sometimes you have to be patient. So,
Aw, yeah, people are still giving you condolences, Penny.
oh, thank you, you guys. It was
Showing your
kind of a
bright.
rough week there in the middle of July.
Dear, absolutely. So we are already, look at this, we've just, an hour has flown by.
Already?
We're barely,
Okay.
we've still got lots to cover, Penny. So remind me, when is our next, we're taking next week off and then we're back the following week, I think. Is that
Yeah,
right?
right.
Yes.
Next weekend, I'm teaching an Intuition 5 class, and I wanted to squeeze an organic gardening class in there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to until September. But so we have, I think it's the weekend of the 16th, or that weekend, that Friday. We
Yes.
will be back, or maybe it's the
Yeah.
15th. I'm not sure the actual date.
I think it
And
is
then
yeah.
the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then I take a week where I teach the master teacher program, and then we're back on again at the end of the month. So,
Great.
yeah. So we have every other week this
And
month.
I really do want to go on to more timeline stuff. I have these
Yeah.
predictions that came through in 2021 that I'd love to share with all of you. And,
Okay.
there's a very specific date that came through, and that was in 2021. And just a little spoiler here, that date is Tuesday, August 25th, 2025.
Ooh.
So that is this month, folks. So I
Okay.
think we might want to see what's happening right at that exact moment in the timeline, because this was all timeline predictions.
Oh
And that
wow.
was the only single date that jumped out of that session.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Let's talk about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's.
I've been reviewing John Teeter and his predictions and going, OMG, OMG.
Right?
And we
Yeah.
can talk also about how timelines are very similar, but they'll have a slight difference And when you've been out of the body enough and into other versions of reality, you see that becomes very clear after a while. You have to stop and ask yourself, am I in the right reality? And you look for some little detail. Sometimes you can't tell right away, but I've had a number of experiences in which it was like, that doesn't happen in my everyday reality. I am not in the right reality. And that's always a big shock. So, yeah. And then how do you get back?
Ooh, that is a very, very interesting topic. I
Yeah.
really want to bookmark that, Penny, because I think we were also talking just before we got on the show about there's all this like violence in the news. Like, I mean, I think mainstream media is just blowing it up, trying to like just keep us in scare frequency as they always do.
I
But
know.
we've had experiences in our own personal lives where there's been sort of a bit more cataclysmic personal energy going on.
Yeah.
So, we've talked today about how that could be beneficial to kind of keep us evolving, quickly evolving forward onto these ideal timelines. And maybe we're going to look at, next time we get together, what is it like when we realize, okay, something is trying to tell me I need to shift
Yeah.
because I'm seeing things in my reality that I would prefer not to see.
I know. Yeah. It's like, okay. So, yeah,
Yeah.
let's include all of that next time. Okay.
Love it, love it. Okay, we've got some housekeeping to do before we sign
Oh, yeah.
off here. So we've got yes, over here Beyond Mystic Apparel. I just think this stuff is beautiful. It's so classy looking. So we've got the special edition T-shirts,
Yeah.
black ones, white ones. We have the EMF hats. How cool is that? So yeah, check that stuff out. And also, I have another thing that I'm supposed to be showing here. Oh, here it is. Okay, look at this, folks. This is an annual midsummer sale where you receive 50% off using code SUMMER50. This sale is for all the material on the Beyond Mystic
Wow.
Academy, except for stuff released in August of 2025. So
Oh,
all the material before this month is going to be on 50% off. What a great deal. So jump on there, folks. If you haven't already taken, if you're looking for some of those courses and been wanting to grab a couple of them, that this is a great opportunity to do that. Of course, as always, reminding you to follow us over here on Rumble. Awesome content coming up in this next week. And of course, always liking and sharing the material here on the YouTube channel. And you can find me booking a session using coupon code below. You can book a 1-hour psychic tarot reading. I have spaces next week, and you can receive a 10% discount on that. Finally, let's have a look at Penny's website. Any new stuff starting here, Penny?
well, just those two things I mentioned, Intuition 5, but you have to have taken 1, 2, 3, and 4
Right.
because Intuition 5 is past lives, future lives, and that you have to have some, you have to be pretty comfortable with being able to use consciousness. And then the Master Teacher Program, that's for anybody in the school system or parents or grandparents who are wanting to understand and learn, how do I teach my children? How do I become a freelance teacher working on her own? How do I start making curriculum, publishing curriculum, et cetera, et cetera? It's for those who are interested in learning how to use brain compatible, accelerative teaching and learning materials and skills. So
Amazing, Penny. Thank you so much for these offerings. And I look forward to partaking in more of your offerings down the road as well. So we're going to sign off for this week, folks. Have a beautiful week. And it looks like we have an extraordinary month ahead with some incredible timeline potential, not jumps, but detours into positive directions if we can really go deep, get into that deeper sense of presence, purpose, intuition, following those clues. And we'll be
Mhm.
covering lots more of this in the weeks ahead. So have a beautiful week, everybody. Last words, Penny?
Watch your timeline. Stay the
I need
course.
like a little timeline watch, like, oh gosh, I better hurry up.
Yeah.
My timeline shift is about to happen. I better get going here.
Enjoy the journey. Life is
Enjoy.
meant to be enjoyed. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Blessings to you all.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful couple of weeks. Bye for now.
Bye.